Hello there and welcome to Third Eye Africa TV, and the program is Democracy in Action. We want to look at a very critical element when it comes to elections. Before the election, during the election, and after the election. What happens to this element? We're talking about the police. The police will always be present as a lead agency when it comes to providing security in terms of protecting electoral materials, protecting voters, and the integrity of the process itself. They always have to be around. And being that as the case, in Nigeria today, there's the clamor for a state police service. The bill is already on ground, an executive bill. It has gone through the Senate. Now at the state level, every parliament at the state level will have to look at this. How good would that be? We want to look at this and more. Once again, my name is Ben Adam Shema, and we have a guest who is a lawyer. Yes, a barrister at law, and a philanthropist, and he's here to do judgment to what we are discussing. I'm talking of Barrister Kudos Allah Lafia. I know of Alafia, but Allah Lafia. What does that mean in Yoruba, sir?
Yes, Alalafia means tranquility.
Tranquility.
Means, in the literary sense, the owner of peace. Somebody who is after peace.
Okay.
That's why I said peace and tranquility.
Oh, so just like we have Alafin.
Alaafin means the owner of the palace.
Oh, okay.
Alaafin.
Okay.
Exactly. So it's my pleasure to be on this program. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much. And therefore, we're looking at a critical element for there to be that peace during, in fact, before, during, and after elections.
Very well.
Now,
very
the
well.
Nigerian government, Nigerians are clamoring, even though there are some divergent views or opinions as to the necessity, the desirability of having a state police service vis-a-vis federal police service in Nigeria. So to you, is it that the time has come for it, or we don't even need it at all?
Okay, thank you very much. We need it. We ought to have even had this state police since time immemorial, at least defining the time immemorial, let's say since 1999. Because the geographical location of Nigeria as a country is now, calling for people who actually understands the terrain. Because the kind of crime, or should I say the modus operandi, the way and manner at which certain crimes are being committed, shows that the perpetrators of this crime are master of the geographical location or the terrain at which they commit this crime. And by the constitution of our police, the current police that we have, we can have a westerner being posted to the north. Someone who has never been to the north. The language barrier is there. The cultural barrier is there. So many barriers, not to talk of now understanding the locality. And by the way we've constructed our laws around crime in Nigeria, crimes are localized. So you need to actually either be from that side, or you have been part and parcel of these people before you can truly understand the true concept of how that crime came about and how to nip it on the bud. But what we have now is we have, the last time I checked, we have a bit above 500,000 Nigerian police officers in Nigeria. And our population, after the last census, they said is over 200 million. In some quarters, they say close to 300. If that is the case, it shows that we have limited number of these officers who really even understand the terrain at which they are being posted to even combat crimes. So going by that, of course, it is high time we have citizens of a state, indigenes, let me put it that way, of a state, being recruited to go after the bad ones among them. Like the Yoruba people will say, you send a child of a fire to the fire. Omonola and Rosino. So that if capital letter A is sent after another capital letter A, at least you both understand the language, you both understand the signs, you both understand those little things that may be, that the federal police, if I can use that word now, may be unaware of. Because if you look at the people that perpetrate these crimes, they are people that have mastered the area, the terrain. If you look at bandit terrorists that the government have been able to catch so far, and you look at their historical background, you will see that these are people that they actually gave birth to them in the bush. They understand what lives, what animals in the bush, whatever they are saying, they understand. And we now have somebody who has gone to school, who has gone through the elite procedure and everything, and you are sending such a person into the bush. It won't tally. So for me, state police is actually a very fantastic mechanism. However, we cannot also dislodge the fears such as the governor's abuse, political victimization, even lack of funds. Because we have state governments that can't even pay their normal public and civil servants. Not to now talk of police officers that are now being, it's a fresh employment on its own. And like someone did the analysis some times ago, some states will be able to pay salaries. Because these are people with the mindset that we are going to hand guns over to them. When we are unable to pay salaries and you've handed gun over to these people, are they not going to also turn to our nightmare? So issue of funding are there. The fear of governor also using them as a tool is also there. We cannot dislodge those fears because, like I used to say, our problem in Nigeria is not that we lack laws. There are 1,001 laws that people they are not aware of. The only one everybody knows is the Constitution. It was during 2020, during the COVID-19, that some people knew that there is a law called the Quarantine Act. There are laws. However, there is lack of willingness to enforce that law, which is efficiency.
Yes. Now, outside that, there are also some fears. Some people believing, okay, if you just make the police service too indigenous, chances are that there will be some cover up. Some will say, oh, these are my cousins, these are my friends, now they are engaged in this. Then I have to cover them up. That's esprit de corps in a negative way.
Yes. For me, if we are going to follow that proposition, that proposition does not even affect state police alone. It affects everything. It goes without saying that even with the current structure of the police, if by our so-called cultural integration and social integration, I have known, let's say, fictitious now, one Audu. We've been a very good friends and the likes. And as a police officer, I am now saddled with the responsibility of carrying out my statutory function over such a person. That proposition will also affect the current structure. It also affects, the fact that, judges, government officials, and that's what we call nepotism. And for me, since we say the Nigerian of our dream begins with me, it follows without saying That if indeed, that's why we are always saying that only government cannot also do this thing. We need the collaboration of all Nigerians to actually make this work. For me, that proposition is not sufficient enough. We should not even, in any way think about it. So that, because if we are looking at that, hey, we are sitting on a gunpowder. It means that if I have my allegiance with my fellow brother in Niger, I can sell my country. We should not go to that extent. That is thinking it too far. But there is an adage in Yoruba that says, when your neighbor is eating something that is bad, a food that is bad, and you refuse to tell that neighbor, by the time at midnight, when the neighbor start making some kind of drama, you yourself will not sleep. That takes me to the current, now the ones we've seen in the news, whereby I think recently the Nigerian police arrested a traditional ruler in Kwara State. They found over 90 million naira, in his house. They found about 30 million naira in his wife's account. And it was established, I think it's still ongoing, but by what we saw in the news, they said they find out that it was the traditional ruler that was giving aids and, helping bandits to terrorize neighboring villages. By the time you allow these people to take over every other villages or every other community around it, they will come back to you. So what goes around comes around. So for me, I do not see that as a threat. If we are truly serious, if we truly want this country to work. But what we should rather be looking at is issue of funding, because that part, even the government has not been able to answer it. Of course, I know that by the bill, the state police will be funded in two ways. One, by the federal government, I think through the consolidated revenue or something, and by the state government. But that notwithstanding, we still have some states that are unable to pay their, workers' salary. Now adding this to it may be an additional burden. So government really need to look into that area of funding, because by the nature of the state police, they are going to be harmed. And if you don't feed a man whom you have given a gun or ammunition to, of course, that's another power on its own. They will misuse their power. That is my only fear. Thank you very much.
Now, but when you also look at the structures, the security architecture,
Yes.
now you're having the president appointing
Yes.
the inspector general,
Yes.
then the governor appointing
The commissioner.
the commissioners.
Yes.
Also, side by side kind of a structure. Some people are saying there will be some conflict of roles. Others will say, okay. You also have the federal courts in those areas.
Yes. Yes.
And you also have the state courts in
Yes.
those states. And so, if there is no conflict there, then there shouldn't be with the police force. What's your take on that?
For me, I do not, even as a lawyer now, I've been able to at least scan through the bill. I do not see where there may be conflict. Reason is that the president or the governor, in the exercise of their statutory power to appoint either the IGP or the commissioner of police, they are not doing it independently. They are also going to now be doing it through, if it is a governor, on the recommendation of the State Police Service Commission. So that's a little bit of checks and balances. So the governor cannot just, say, this is the person I want to appoint. Of course, we know there's something they call politicking in Nigeria. But interpreting the bill as it is, it's looking like there are checks and balances. More so, there is an added power or discretionary power given to the IGP and the Commissioner of Police, respectively, to disallow or disobey unlawful order from either the governor or the president. But under our Interpretation Act, because I'm a lawyer, and we are not just looking at one law. We are looking at all laws. Under the Interpretation Act, guess what? Interpretation Act says he who has the power to appoint has the power to fire. So, if the bill is saying, if they pass the bill into law and the bill is saying you have a discretion to reject unlawful order, but this is somebody that has appointed you. Interpretation Act is saying he has the power to remove you. That is where the abuse use of the governors may come in. I can only but enjoin. You see, the way law is structured, law can only help to be a bit futuristic. You cannot take care of all issues at the same time. And that takes me back to what I said earlier. I said it is not that we lack laws. It is just that we lack efficiency of the law. And lack of efficiency of the law simply means you looking at the law the way it is, and now looking at the lacuna in it, so that you can exploit those areas. Do you understand? But even with all this, the problem we are facing is too great for us not to have a state police. At least it will help. We've seen cases whereby state government, private security structure of a state has been able to, at one point or the other, been able to aid our current police in, locating the den of all this perpetrating of crimes.
Yes, when you're talking about what state governments have always been having, what they call their own kind of organizations.
Yes.
Some security kind of a thing.
Yes.
To assist. So it sounded like the state police in waiting. However, when you look at the civilian joint task force,
yes,
they work side by side the military.
Yes.
And like you also said, if you appoint people who know the environment,
exactly,
it's always better. Now you have the military coming from Calabar, Sokoto, they're going to Maiduguri. They now meet indigents. So when we're talking about recruitment, therefore, who are we talking of recruiting? State indigents, like we just say, State Civil Service Commission, where when you are recruiting teachers, you recruit indigents. You're taking people from for Ministry of Finance, you are recruiting indigents. Now, look at Lagos, for example.
Yes.
The number of Igbo people there, Niger Delta, Northerners there. How do you handle those people so that they also feel longing?
Yeah. It's not far-fetched. In the course of discussing, I said, you either employ indigents, but the qualification of that indigent is that you may be an indigent and you may not know your area. So the qualification will not be specifically indigent. Or when we are saying indigent, we mean indigent in the sense that you understand the geographical location of your state.
And that will be
because that should be the
residence.
ratio. Yes, that should be the ratio. So even if I'm not an indigent, but I can prove that I've been living in this area for the past, not only God knows the number of years. I understand your language. I understand your language. I've drank your water. I have ate your food. I have friends. Perhaps I'm even married to your, which shows how localized I am. That should not be a barrier. Do you understand? But so when we say indigene, does not mean you are an indigene and you are in you were giving birth in Lagos, and we now want to do recruitment in the far away Ekiti State or Ondo, and you now quickly run home. And they say, where you are even coming, where is your family house? You can't even point to. It will defeat that purpose. Because the idea of state police is allowing people that really understand their local area to be in charge of their security architecture. It's as simple as that.
So elections will come.
Yes.
Now you have federal police.
Yes.
Doing deployments.
Yes.
You have governors doing deployment.
Yes.
And you're also talking of a situation where some governors want to succeed themselves.
Yes.
The president wants to succeed himself.
Yes.
Now, he who appoints can fire.
Yes.
So, how do we strike a balance here to ensure there is professionalism?
Yes, thank you very much. If you have read the bill, the draftmen of that bill, I think they tried a bit to make sure that the state police is not, even though they are independent, but they are not, and they are not doing whatever they are doing. Their activities is not in opposition to the federal police. They are to complement, just the way we have it now. We have the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, and the Nigerian Air Force, and we have the Nigerian Police. By the relevant enactment establishing these institutions that I have mentioned, at the time of war, everyone, by the law that they are all that established them, they know that okay, we are all addressing this war. The Nigerian Army knows that okay, who takes the lead, who serve as paramilitary. Do you get what I'm saying? So the way the law is structured, it is that they are to complement the federal service. I mean the federal police. So it is not that the federal police will give an order and the state police will give a contrary order. No. By that law, you are to complete. The word complement is very important. You are to complement. So because in any way, a governor's order cannot override the president's order. Or should I say, a state order cannot override the federal order. So the way it is structured, even though if you look at it very well, who conducts elections in Nigeria? INEC. But whenever we are not talking about local governments, who conducts it? It is the state's electoral. So for me, it will be that whenever we have elections in Nigeria, general elections as we call it, the federal police has the statutory duty to be in charge, whereby they will now call for the help of what? The state police. But meanwhile, when we have local government elections in respective states, then it becomes the primary duty of the what? Of the state police to now take care of it. And whenever there is a situation that they cannot undo, they call the federal police to what? To step in. Just the same way we have issues whereby the police will be handling, and whenever they cannot undo, who do they call? They call the Nigerian Army.
So it will just look like like caregivers under emergency. Principally, if there's any flood, the local government moves in.
Good.
Then the state will go complement.
Good.
Then the federal will go
Good.
complement.
God bless you. So it touches on what we want to do. Who has the primary responsibility? That's the question. A state police cannot say, oh, this is general election, we are the one to handle it. Do you have jurisdiction? Do you have the locus? Do you have the power in other states? The answer is no. Because that's why they call it general election.
So opposition politicians, journalists, human rights activists,
Yes.
will not have fear that governors can be overbearing.
Definitely. For me, definitely. However, in a case where we have the federal police as compromised, I mean, the federal police being compromised, the state police being compromised, and that is why John Locke said it is too great a temptation for the same man who makes the law to also be the one to enforce and execute. For me, the way the laws are being structured, we are to checkmate one another.
Now, just the way you've paraphrased John Locke, you can't make the law and implement the law.
At the same time.
Yes, at the point, late President Buhari had an executive order to the Supreme Court, telling the court that, look, governors should just hands off the finances of local governments. But the Supreme Court surprisingly said, look, President, you are wrong. You can't make the law and implement it. You are a member of the executive, you know.
And that is the standard. That is, in fact, what you just explained now is the core principle of separation of power. Because the essence of power is for checks and balances. But what I'm even saying with respect to this federal police or state police is that federal police officers that are posted to a particular state may also compromised. And where they are compromised, of course, the ones in the states would presumably maybe would have been compromised. Now, who checkmates who? How do we now do these checks and balances? But with that, despite all these challenges, it is high time we have state police. For me, that's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Regardless, because as we are going, we will keep what? Improving. Obviously, there was a time when we were shouting state police. The government was like, okay, we don't need it. They trashed it. But by the time the problem is getting to the peak, and everybody is quite visible to everybody now that, oh, it's obvious we need state police. Now they are saying it. By the time we also have state police, when all these issues people are identifying comes to the peak, I know we will. That is why I know we will readjust, and that is why one of the basic features or element of law is that law is dynamic in nature. It moves the way society moves. So if we have the state police, let's see how let's see maybe in a year or two how it will work.
Okay. Now,
And that may now call for amendments in the act. Same way the new electoral act has been amended severally.
So, power of arrest.
Yes.
The same, the federal police will pay attention to
Federal-
terrorism,
yes, federal
counter-terrorism, federal offenses,
Yes.
cyber crimes,
Yes.
terrorism,
Yes.
banditry, and all
Yes.
that. You know. Then, in terms of, power to arrest. Now, where are you taking them to? You're talking about prisons owned by the by the federal government, but
Okay.
many arrests are done by the state.
Okay, so I think at this juncture, I would like to lecture our audience. Like when I was talking the other time, I said I said crime. The way we structured our law around crime, it is localized. There are some enactments that it is only the states that can enforce it. It is only the Attorney General of the states that can enforce it. The Attorney General of the Federation does not have a say. And there are some offenses that it is only the Attorney General of the Federation that has a say. The Attorney General of the state does not have a say.
Let's expand this.
I'm coming there. That is why we now have federal high courts and we have state high courts. For example, if you look at issue of murder in the south, we call it homicide punishable with death. In the north, manslaughter in the south, we call it homicide punishable with life imprisonment or not punishable with death. Are you there? This kind of stealing, all these kind of offenses, they are localized. It is only the state government or by the way the laws are enacted, it is only that state that can enforce those laws. They are not federal offenses. Except for offenses committed in more than one jurisdiction. But when you look at cybercrime, like you mentioned, terrorism, treason, all those I call them corporate crimes, because you need huge capital to commit those kind of crimes. It goes without saying that by the time we have the federal police and the state police, then the federal police will be able to arrest suspects who has committed federal offenses. And we have state police arresting suspects who has committed a state crime. Let me put it that way. You know, as it is now, the way we have it now, whether the crime is state or federal, whether it is a crime identified as a crime within that state, or the federal offenses, who arrests? Police.
Fine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So just that we have, don't forget that we have the divisional police headquarters. They are the ones that usually arrest the crime committed within the states, while the federal offenses are now being they are offenses that all these area command at the federal level, or maybe let's say IGP monitoring unit, or even a deputy, a DIG, an AIG will be the one in charge. They will say a particular matter has been reported to the AIG. That kind of offense, if you look at it, is a federal offense. But if you are talking about that, we are talking about murder, because as we have the criminal code, which is enacted by the National Assembly, we also have the criminal code of the respective states. That is why there are some offenses in some states. That same action is not an offense in another state. It is that state that enacted that law that said this is a crime. Meanwhile, you will go to another state, it is not a crime. But once we say federal offense, whether you live in the north, or you live in the south, or you live in the west, or in the east, or in the east, anywhere you commit that offense, it becomes a crime. Where? In Nigeria.
That's why they said they have the competence.
God bless you.
They have the jurisdiction.
Good.
As a federal court.
Exactly.
To try you anywhere.
Exactly.
But when it comes to punishment, like
Yes.
Death,
Yes.
either by hanging or by whatever, lethal or something, injection, it has always been left in the hands of the state governor. And many state governors are now avoiding signing that. Yes, your comment on this.
I have even written my opinion, I think maybe last year. Was it last year, or it was, I think the court found a particular terrorist guilty. They sentenced him to death. And I raised issue that between 1999 till date, I think it was only Adams Oshiomhole who has ever signed that death warrant. I mean, the warrant to go and execute. We need, our politicians need to understand, or should I say our leaders, because it is the politician that will become a leader, need to understand the concept of punishments of crime. That study alone is called criminology. The study of crime and its what? And its punishment. The essence, like John Locke said, the essence, if you look at the likes of John Locke, if you like, in fact, this utilitarian school of thought proponents, Jeremy Bentham, when they were talking about the concept of punishment, the essence of death penalty, even though some people have been saying, no, it's wrong, stop killing people, stop. The essence, if you go back to why there was issue of, because issue of death penalty did not start with us. It is from time immemorial. So you must go back to history and look at what is the rationale behind our forefathers to say, if you have committed this kind of offense, then you don't deserve to live. Because before somebody could have the mindset to kill another person, the concept of punishment says you extinguish that kind of person from the society. You remove,
terminate him.
Absolute termination. Because somebody.
So why are governors refusing therefore to sign this?
That is why I said efficiency of the law.
Or some political.
Only
so
them.
they don't say, you are the one who killed my son. You are the one who killed my relation. So no vote for you or something. Is it humanitarian on the side of governors?
Sincerely speaking, only they can answer. Sincerely speaking. But I think
Because look at the prison congestion. Many people are waiting execution.
I think we should. Of course, I know there is a procedure called through the writ of mandamus. Writ of mandamus is when you apply to court to compel an authority to act. But that writ of mandamus is usually used when it comes to fundamental rights. I think we need to amend our law to say reason, except a governor has a reasonable ground to refuse to sign, they should give the governors a time frame within which they should sign all these writ of execution. And failure to sign may amount to gross misconduct.
So how do you punish a governor who has executive immunity?
Of course, that is why, even though, of course, we have cases of impeachment now. We can impeach. The only problem we have is that of the president. Because no president has ever been impeached, except during the military era that they would, through a coup. So for me, if we say failure to sign amounts to gross misconduct, you will see these people. Because people that have gone, if you look at notable criminals, I'm using that word now, criminals in Nigeria, their story, they have, in one way or the other, they've gone into the prison, come back to commit even greater offense. I don't know whether you get it.
Yes.
The likes of Anini, the likes of Yunusi, even there is one in Southwest then, Gudugudu. They all have history of, they were arrested for a crime, tried and prosecuted and sent to jail, which we now call correctional centers. But instead of coming out to be a better person, they become worse. So for me, they may be doing it maybe on moral grounds to say, oh no, we don't want I don't want any blood in my hand. But no. Whether in the Quran, whether in the Bible, he who kills must be killed.
Okay, we'll just go on a very short break and come back. And when we do come back, we look at sometimes what we call conflicting judgments here and there. In particular, the most recent one has to do with the Nigerian Democratic Congress, where the judge will say, INEC recognize this party. INEC don't recognize this party. Move, don't move. The same court is giving that order. We'll come to all of that, and our guest still remains a barrister. I'm talking of a humanitarian officer, also what I call a man with a human with humanity. I saw it demonstrated somewhere.
Thank you.
And you keep it up.
Thank you,
I saw that in a market. I'm sorry to digress a bit. In a market, you were able to start buying food and dashing people. I just stood and looked back. Who is this gentleman? And that linked us up, and I said, come and discuss these issues with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Allah Lafia. Kudos.
It's my pleasure, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for honoring us.
Yes, sir.
So let's go on this short break and come back.
The first reason why matters are prolonged and thereby having cold files, according to you, is because poorness of investigation. Other reasons why we have cold files are the procedural system in our adversarial adjudication.
Interference on the part of the government. That interference is the one that usually become a backlog in the wheel of prosecution counsel.
No matter how stupid any corrupt man is, if he's going with billions of naira, be sure that he will have part of that billion aside to fight and defend the corruption. Part of the defense is protraction, delay of the trial.
The politicization in Nigeria is one of the core problems bedeviling our legal system. In election matters, we hardly get settled principle. They change by the day, because there is political interference. Our system is structured in a way that if our prosecutory bodies want to work, the work is easy. But what I believe is if, for instance, they don't genuinely intend to prosecute, if it's just to persecute the person, they want you to just stay in prison, do the media trial, presenting that this person is being charged for this, charged for that. I think sometimes it's a case of the prosecutor being responsible and the person being prosecuted also being responsible.
This is where we focus critically on numerous unresolved cases in the Nigerian and African judiciaries. My name is Charles Agedu. Join me on Code Files, a chronology of unresolved crime cases, only on Third Eye Africa TV.
Welcome back. Now, we've seen some courts or judges giving some conflicting judgments. Courts of coordinate jurisdiction, same powers, even contradicting themselves as to, and when you know your powers are the same, so why do you contradict the other? Why do they do this, in your own opinion?
Okay, thank you very much. The first thing we need to know is that judges do not go to the market to know what is happening. It depends on what the two parties have come to place before it. For me, it is quite unfortunate. And I feel the National Judicial Council, who oversees the oversight function over our judges, as well as the Supreme Court, which is the apex court in Nigeria, should have a means of compelling courts that has branches, like the Federal High Court, across all the 36 states, to have a means of, reporting their cases. That a judge that is seated in Gombe will be aware of a similar matter before it in Lagos.
But I thought there is the weekly law report.
That one is only meant for, if you see those reports, is only for Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. And it is even done by a private entity established by Ganefa Wehimi, the NWLR, or the Law Pavilion, the Electronic Law Report. It is not owned by the government. And that one is usually not spontaneous. What I'm saying is that if a judgment is given today, let all the judges within that court be aware, because you will be surprised that parties, a lot of these things, it is the parties before the court. Except in some extra cases where a party has been able to bring it to the notice of the courts that, my lord, there is a judgment.
And they begin to say, we've not seen the CTC certified.
Of course, ordinarily, a court will not just rely on oral statements. They will act on documents. But of course, that also should put the judge on the side of caution. Okay, this is a lawyer before me saying that if I'm the judge, now I'm talking for myself now. If I'm a judge, I would rather want to be on the side of caution to say, okay, let me just tarry a bit. Let me just, adjourn this matter for maybe like a day or two. How many days will it take you for you to go and bring? Because there is this aphorism, justice delayed is justice denied, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, justice rushed is justice crushed. So you have to balance it. And that is why we always say that justice is not only for the parties. It is also for the courts and also for the society. So for me, I will propose that our courts, such as the Federal High Court, should have a particular mechanism that a judge in Abuja, once he gives judgment on a matter, every other judge in other jurisdictions across the 36 will be aware. But parties will intentionally hide that fact. Also by our law says a judge to another judge, maybe Federal High Court to another Federal High Court, or Federal High Court to State High Court, of State High Court to National Industrial Court. Are you getting me? They are court of coordinate jurisdiction. Coordinate jurisdiction means they are mates. No one is above the other. So there is this issue of I want to preserve my jurisdiction.
So level 10 officer cannot give level
So
10 officer
exactly,
query.
exactly. So you cannot be telling me that because my colleague who is in so has given this judgment, I have to follow it. That is the law. What the law only says is that it is only a senior judge, that's an appellate judge, that can give an order to the lower court judge, and that lower court judge is bound to follow. That thing is called the principle of stare decisis.
Now, I can also see that at the point judges become so, they'll be angered by conducts of some lawyers.
Yes.
Say this is so frivolous.
Yes.
And heavy fines
Yes.
are imposed on such lawyers.
Exactly, because they are it is the so-called parties that usually, in one way or the other, they will conceal one or two info. It is only when the judge gives judgment. Of course, the judge is also part of the society now. They will not be reading online. But nobody told me that there is this or that. A judge is not a witch. In fact, guess what? If a judge even knows the true position of things, if that true position is not before it, he cannot rule. Because the principle of law is that a judge does not speculate. And speculation means you cannot use your own as a judge. You cannot use your own personal knowledge of that issue to judge. It must be by what parties have brought before you. Now guess what? In the event a judge is even aware of the true position, I'm talking about the facts, not the law. Now a judge is presumed to know all laws. But something happened yesterday. I am not part of your family. I'm not part of your household. Why should I know what happened in your house? Well, when a judge knows about it, there is a rule called the principle of bias or likelihood of bias. The law says that judge should recuse himself. Recuse simply means in English, excuse himself from that case.
He shouldn't sit and try.
Don't sit and try it.
Now, we have seen the case of the Emirate of Gwandu.
Yes.
Or Emir of Gwandu.
Yes.
The Supreme Court had decided in its finality. They say we are supreme as in supreme, and judgments are final in their finality.
Yes.
Then suddenly, a lawyer appeared that judgment should be reviewed.
Yes.
The court went so harsh and said, okay, we hereby fine you 50 million.
Yes.
Pay or your call to bar is reviewed.
Yes.
You think that is good for judiciary or for justice in Nigeria?
I'm so happy that I'll be addressing this issue here. I'm very happy. We need to balance it. The first thing we need to learn is that our Supreme Court justices are human beings who are also prone to exercising emotions, although with extra and greater caution. However, in order to balance this thing, because everybody is only on the judgment, we are only reading the judgment. The question is, have you bothered to even read have you even bothered to read what the lawyer has filed? So that when you look at what the lawyer has filed, and you look at the judgment of the court, you will be looking at it from two lenses instead of one. I agree, if you are going to look at that judgment the way it is, there are some words, because these people, when you are appointed as a Supreme Court justices, we expect highest level of whatever that is going on in everybody's brain. But what I am saying is, have we also bothered to look at that vexatious application the lawyer filed? And also now look at the record of proceeding. Record of proceeding means what happened in court that day. Have we bothered to what? To check it. And that is why in Adegoke Mutos versus Adesanya, Honorable Justice Okuta GSE of blessed memory said, we are the final, not because we are infallible, but infallible because we are the final. In fact, Panikitobi, or perhaps it is also Justice Okuta, they also said, justices of this Supreme Court are human beings. They are very, very explicit. What is the meaning of these two statements I've made? That you should not look at them as angels. They are not angels, but there are parameters upon which they should act. Now, let me break it down for you. Maybe because so many people may not know. The Supreme Court has given a judgment. And the law is that every court, whether magistrates, high court, court of appeal, Supreme Court, every court can actually set aside its own judgments or ruling, but on a very, 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 very strict, limited, and express elements. What are the elements? They said, if a court has given judgment without jurisdiction, you can go back to that same judge.
Or maybe a spelling mistake.
Or where the judgment was obtained by fraud. Because no matter how valid anything is, the court will never sanction what? Illegality. So, for example, maybe in the course of the proceeding, somebody has gone to forge a document, and the court heavily rely on that document to give a judgment. You can go on appeal if you so wish, but the law also said you can go back to that same judge, file a motion, or you start a fresh suit to prove that what? That fraud, so that the court can now what? Reverse itself.
So that finality is no longer supreme.
Exactly. Do you understand it now? That is what the law is. I mean, the law has said. However, this lawyer now filed an application for review on the ground of fraud. That the judgment was obtained through fraud. So, you know, even as a layman, you'll be expecting somebody to prove the fraud you are talking about. At least if you are saying judgment has been obtained by fraud, what will be coming through your mind? Is it that somebody has bribed somebody? Or is it that one of the parties has gone to forge a document? You now said in your own application that the lawyer on the other side misinterpreted the law, misrepresented the law, and by so doing he has committed a fraud. Is there any law in our country that has defined fraud? Section 419 of the Penal Code. Has it in any way defined for fraud to be the misinterpretation or misrepresentation of law? No. At best, we will say you are misinterpreting the law. Because the law is there, everybody can see it. The way you now interpret it may be what? May be different. Ground 2, he went ahead he went for the head of the justice that gave the leading judgment and said that one too misinterpreted the law. I mean, very annoying. Our Supreme Court, in fact,
I probably looked at the document so used.
You are just
rather than
dancing,
castigating the judge.
You are dancing around the law. When by our law, our justices are the master of law. They are the master of law. If you are saying things about the facts, the judges will look at it. The justice will, because they were not there when those issues were happening. So they will need to, cross. But you are talking about, it's like somebody is telling me now that, oh, like I was saying before I started, you may disagree with me with respect to the way I've interpreted a particular law. That is what we call jurisprudence of law, philosophy of law. When you see lawyers going to court to cite cases, to cite laws, on the same law, each lawyer will be having different opinion. I was telling somebody, I said, a lawyer does not see more than what the client has allowed him or her to see. You are not a witchcraft. I mean, you don't possess witchcraft. You are not a witch or a wizard. So, but you know the law. because it is presumed that you know the law, and that's why you're a lawyer. So you cannot castigate me for interpreting the law the way I've interpreted it.
Okay. Now,
You can only say, perhaps I misrepresented facts. Maybe it happened this way, and I'm now saying, no, it didn't happen. It happened. Look at during NSAS now. People are saying nobody died. Some people are saying, is that law? That one is not law. It's what? Fact. Something that happened. But can we be arguing whether or not there is a law in Nigeria that says he who killed must be killed? I mean, he who kills must be killed. Can we be arguing over it? No. That law is there. It is there. However I now interpret it is my business.
Okay. Now let's look at the business of the court versus the Nigerian Democratic Congress.
Yes.
A judge directs INEC
Yes.
register this,
Yes.
take them as a political party.
Yes.
The same
Court.
judge court will come and say no, don't. So, what do you think happens here?
Thank you very much. You see, I've seen a lot of people misinterpreting what happened before that court. And I feel, if you also see what the INEC said, I'm not sure the INEC has come out to say we've deregistered NDC. What they said that I know is that we are studying the judgments. Now, what happened? NDC got their name registered. PMP came to say, oh, we were not joined in this suit, so therefore, please reverse. In the opinion of the judge, set aside that judgment and now said they should start the matter all over again. Now, you see, a court is not a Father Christmas. And an order of court must be strictly abide to. You don't use one order to start saying, because the court has said this. For example, I just want to start an example. Let's say a court said, I hereby give an order that all men, are you there? All men should be evacuated from Nigeria. And somebody now stood up to say, that means they said we should kill them. The word used is what? Evacuate. It means we should kill them. It means we should chase them away. It means you don't subject it to your own what? Interpretation. If you are not clear about it, go back to that same court. It's just by way of motion. For the court to interpret, what does it mean by what? Evacuation. In the judgment that the court gave initially, court said, I hereby compel INEC to what? To register NDC. Look at that word, compel. Now, NDC has been what? Registered. They've even gone ahead to participate in some major elections, like Enugu and I think Kogi. Now, the same judge now said, I hereby vacate that order. Now, the question we'll be asking ourselves is, as at the time the judge made the earlier order, has that order not been complied with? It has been complied with. So, I hereby vacate does not mean go and, the court said, I hereby order INEC to deregister NDC. No, the court simply said, I hereby vacate. What did the court vacate? Compelling INEC to what? To register. Now INEC has now registered.
Now, do you think?
So that is what we mean by when we say action. I mean that event has been overtaken by what? By action. Event overtaken by action. So the earlier order has been complied with. So as we speak, NDC is a political party.
But do you think psychologically they were injured, they were rattled and all that?
Of course, they will. Because the implication of it is that ordinarily, that judgment having been vacated, if NDC is not dutiful, are you there? Another person can bring an application to now say, my lord, give effect to your earlier ruling whereby you vacated the order. So therefore, give an order that INEC should what? Deregister. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's like for me, that thing is like more or less like the court ordered INEC to not do what he asked him. It didn't say undo. He said, do not do it again. But I've done it.
Well,
do you understand the
yeah.
way it is now?
I
So
think-
so it is not undo. If the court said, I hereby vacate, and so therefore INEC deregister. You know, it's very clear. But he said, I vacate. What, that thing that you vacated has been complied with. So the only remedy, are you there, is for the other party to now go on appeal, so that they will set aside, because they are the only one that have the power, because once they set aside, they will now give a what we call consequential order. A consequential order to say INEC deregister NDC. And that is why I think NDC too has now gone ahead to appeal the ruling of the court, setting aside its first what? Judgment. And by virtue of that appeal, if there is stay of execution, are you getting me? Nothing can be done at the trial court again. Everybody has to go to the court of appeal. But that is even on the one side. On the second side.
Well, we're actually running. I can
Sorry,
see
let
my
me
producer-
just make one more
Yeah.
point. On the second side, can the courts set aside its own judgments that has already been given? I told you the basis upon which the courts can set aside judgments. Are you getting me? For me, in my personal opinion, I think the best thing that should have been done by this PMP party, it was to appeal that judgment, not to go before that same court to go and cause confusion. But you know the way, like I told you, lawyers know how to frame all these things so that it will fall under those key elements. And if the judge, maybe NDC was not able to also, oppose that application very well, if on the merit of that application it is meritorious, the court will grant it. Thank you very much.
It is here that we just have to end this program. If not,
It's my
we'll
pleasure
continue.
to be here.
Yes, and of course we're talking about Barrister Kudus Alalafia.
It's
I want
my
to
pleasure.
thank you for coming to Third Eye Africa TV.
It's my pleasure very much.
And by the way, are you proud of the Nigerian passport, green?
Yes, very well. I'm a Nigerian. I don't have any other place to go.
What about the armed forces of Nigeria?
Sincerely speaking, I may not be happy, but I am proud of them because I do not have any other identity other than being a Nigerian.
Proudly Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's
Thank
my
you very
pleasure.
much for coming to Third Eye Africa TV.
It's my pleasure.
My name is Ben Adam Shema. Till we meet again, bye for now.